Hello students, welcome to SAS Academy. In this particular video, we are going to discuss about chapter 1 of NCERT class 7 part 2, and the chapter deals with the story of Indian farming. So basically this chapter, similar to other chapters, also starts with a quote, and the quote is from the Krishi Parashar. A farmer who looks after the welfare of his cattle, visits his farms daily, has a knowledge of the seasons, is careful about seeds, and is industrious, is rewarded with harvest of all kinds and never perishes. Basically, this entire, if you talk about this entire quote, it talks about the qualities a farmer must have within himself or herself to be a successful farmer, to reap the reward of harvest, and also he would be able to sustain in all kind of conditions, in all kind of seasons and such. Now, as far as the question, this particular chapter is trying to answer, first is what are the main characteristics of Indian agriculture? Second question it would try to address is how are farming, climate, soil and water are interrelated. And third question is how can traditional practices and contemporary ones complement each other. Now we know that if we talk about the agricultural landscape of India, farming or agriculture is considered as one of the oldest occupations of humankind, whether it is in India or even outside of India. And when you talk about the farming, they also practice, apart from the general cultivation of land for growing of crops, they also practice variety of other agriculture related activities, such as rearing of fish, which is called as pisciculture, rearing of cocoons to extract silk thread, called as sericulture. So very broadly, the term agriculture encompasses farming, animal husbandry. Animal husbandry is simply raising of livestock, forestry, and horticulture. Now, if you try to look at the term itself, agriculture is made up of two words, agri plus culture. The word is taken from Latin language. Agri simply means field and culture means to cultivate. That means in a simple way we can say agriculture is the cultivation of field. Government of India classifies economic activities related to agriculture as agriculture and allied activities. Why allied activities? Because apart from cultivation of field, you also have livestock rearing, beekeeping called as apiculture, fisheries we have discussed such as pisciculture, rearing of silkworm that is called as sericulture, plus even the production of fiber such as cottons and hemp. As far as the India's landmass is concerned, a little over 18% of the country's total value of goods and services are produced in a year. We are talking about the GDP. You would have studied economy, gross domestic product. It comes from the agricultural and allied activities. Not only that, about 46% of India's working population is engaged in agriculture and allied activities. That means we can say not only is it contributing 18% in the total GDP, it also has a humongous share as far as the employment generation is concerned. A large proportion of families in India are closely connected to the land in one way or other, and in many cases have been cultivating it for generation. That means farming generally in India is not something people have begun to practice in this generation or last generation. They have been doing it for generations and generations, for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's why farming activities, of course, can be considered as essential for nurturing and sustaining the human population. Now, there is a term you should be aware about that is generally used in farming called as threshing. So, threshing simply means removing the edible grain from the straw or husk manually or using a machine as such. So, example, when you cultivate wheat and when you harvest wheat, you do not get just grains, you also get the stalk with the grains. So, you have to remove the grain from the stalk. That process is what we call as threshing. Now, India's agricultural landscape, because we have historically been carrying out agriculture for several generations, it has become a kind of vibrant blend. Blend means mixture, we can say, of both traditional as well as modern farming practices. So, diverse crops we cultivate in India, and at the same time, there are very deep-rooted cultural traditions that is practiced in different regions of India. Whether it is the golden wheat fields of Punjab or whether it is the saffron valley of Kashmir. Kashmir, we know, is known for one of the costliest, expensive spices in the world called as saffron, locally called as zafran. Whether you talk about the lush tea gardens you have in the northeastern region of India or the Nilgiris, or whether we talk about the emerald paddy fields of Kerala, agriculture has long been a fundamental part of nation's identity. Now, you may have region that as far as the cultivation of crop is concerned, it is dependent on several factors. Agriculture, the entire agricultural activity depends on several factors, whether it is the availability of fertile soil, whether it is the adequate suitable climate, or even availability of water for irrigation. Not only that, the terrain also to a large extent influences the farming. The story of farming, therefore, is linked to these factors. Linked to what? The soil, the climate, water, and terrain. We look at some of these factors in this chapter, but before that, we need to go back a little in time. Why we need to go back a little in time? Because the story of Indian farming is not new. It is not a modern one. It is an ancient one. And that's why we have to go as far as prehistory. Prehistory is a term that we use to refer to that time of history when people were not writing, when people were not recording information in a written form. It was only oral way of communication. Archaeological investigations have shown that the presence of grains in the Ganga plain as early as 7th or 8th millennium BC. That means 7,000, 8,000 years back, Ganga plain was a region where we have carried out the cultivation of rice grain. Some experts have cultivated that in Meher have basically said that rice cultivation was already systematic and it may have taken a few more millennia to be mastered. As such, at Mehergarh, that is in the present day Baluchistan, which is a province of Pakistan, site antecedent of Sindhu Saraswati civilization, we call it as Indus Valley civilization. The cultivation of barley and millets also is dated to the same time frame. Later, barley and wheat were the staple crops of the Harappan. We know that Harappan civilization is one of the most ancient civilization that existed on the earth. Its site were distributed all across the modern day Indian Pakistan. Several Harappan sites also point to the presence of rice in the 3rd millennium BC, at least in some region, apart from cultivation of millets and vegetables as such. So overall, what we are trying to understand is that farmers gradually they began to learn to cultivate different type of food grains such as oil seeds, such as legumes. Legumes means pulses like green gram, black gram, fenugreek. Then you have fiber crops such as cotton, hemp, jute, vegetables, fruits of different types. Not only that, even India's ancient books such as Vedas mention different type of grains such as Dyava, referring to barley, Godhuma, that is referring to the wheat, one of the staple crop of India today, and Vrihi, that is the other staple crop of India, as well as other crops such as sesame, black gram, and various type of pulses and legumes are also mentioned here. Again, a term we should be aware about in agriculture called as intercropping. Intercropping basically refers to a system where we are growing 2 or more different crops simultaneously at the same time. So we can see from this particular picture here, intercropping at the Harappan site of Kalibangan. The photograph is taken from there. Kalibangan used to be a Harappan site in Rajasthan. Around 2800 BC, we can see there is perpendicular furrows. The same practice continued in 60s, around 1400, 4,800 years later as such. Now, in the period of Harappa, we also see domestication of the animals by the people. Cattle, asses, sheep, goats, dogs, pigs, fowl. These were some of the animals that were believed to be cultivated, believed to be domesticated from the pre-urban phase of the Sindhu Saraswati civilization, that is roughly around 3500 BC as such. Grafting is a technique that joins one plant with other plant, and because suppose that you have a plant here and it has a stem, you take some other plant and then you cut the stem and then you join the stem of the second plant. As a result, what will happen? Both plant will grow as a single plant, enabling the combining of desirable trait like resistant to pest or sweetness of fruit. So the final plant that you will cultivate will have the characteristic of plant 1 as well as the characteristic of plant 2. In the historical period, ancient Indian texts provide a wealth of information on agriculture. Kautilya's famous treatise called as Arth Shastra, you would have heard about. Sangam literature you had in the Tamil area in the early Tamil time. Amar Kosh, Krishi Parasar, Varahmihir's Brihat Samhita, Surpa's Vriksh Ayurved. These are some of the major treatises that we can say was written in the ancient time on agriculture. Surapal's Vriksh Ayurveda provides recommendation on seed preparation, how seeds should be prepared so that it can be sown in the farmland, how soil should be cultivated, planting technique. These all things are given here. For example, there is a mention of seeds being sprinkled with milk, rubbed with cow dung, dried and profusely smeared with maxika. Maxika was the term used for representing honey, and then vidanga, that means false black pepper. It definitely sprout. That's what's written in Rick Ayurveda. On watering of trees, newly planted trees in arid land should be watered every morning. Why? Because obviously in arid areas, the evaporation rate is very higher. So the water loss will be rapid, frequent, and evening for a period of 15 days until the soil is fully soaked. Brihat Samhita described method of grafting. Grafting we just have discussed before. And these all kind of knowledge were already present with our ancestors regarding agriculture. Now we also have to take a look at the climate, season and crops, how they are interrelated, what grows, where and when. Now, India has a varied geography. This we already have established in the earlier chapter. India also has a diverse climate if you move from north to south. And this is the reason how we can explain that different crops are grown in different regions of India. So, in the world of Xuan Zhang, who is a very well-known Chinese pilgrim who traveled to India somewhere in the 7th century, he said that the climate and the quality of soil being different according to situation, and the produce of land is various in its character. So why India is able to grow diverse number of crops, diverse variety of crop? To some extent, the quality of soil changes as well as the nature of climate changes. The flowers and plants, the fruits and trees are different kinds and have distinct names. So this was a sharp observation made by Huan Zhang, also called as Wen Suang, a Chinese traveler. The type of climates in India we have discussed already in the last chapter: alpine, temperate, subtropical, arid, tropical, wet, semi-arid and tropical. So you can refer to the last chapter, chapter 3 of class 7th NCERT part 1 to understand all of these climates in India, how they are formed. Each of these areas receive different quantities of sunshine and rainfall, experience variation in temperature like we have seen. If we talk about the northern part of India, annual temperature range is very high compared to the coastal region of India, where annual temperature range is relatively very low. So overall, based on these differences and variety of climate, India is divided into 15 agroclimatic zones. In simple terms, climate factors, different types of soil and terrain, types of vegetation are combined to create these categories. This categorization helps the government and other agencies to identify that in which region of India you should be planting which crops. Not only that, how you should be able to grow different type of crop. Some of the well-known agricultural region, agroclimatic zones, if you consider, you have the upper Gangetic Plain region in the western Uttar Pradesh, you have southern plateau and hill regions, and then you have the western dry regions such as regions of Rajasthan and all. Then there is a clear linkage between monsoon and agriculture. Indian monsoon system, we have talked about it, it brings rainfall and also is a key factor in country's agricultural diversity. So this again we have discussed that in Climates of India in part 1 of this textbook. We have seen that if you look at the map of India during the summer month, if you look here, the winds are largely southwesterly nature. And similarly, if you talk about the winter season of India, right? If you talk about the summer month, during summer, if you look at the wind flow pattern, it is roughly like this, moving from sea to land. This is called as southwest monsoon. And during winter, the wind direction changes. It moves from where to where? The answer is from land to sea. And this is what we refer as northeast monsoon. So this change in monsoon of India in the pattern of rainfall distribution, in the pattern of wind flow, is a large extent integrated and is influencing factor as far as the agriculture is concerned. Now we know that whether it is northeast monsoon or southwest monsoon, different part of India receive rainfall from both of these monsoon. And it is this region is why people are able to grow different crops in different monsoon period. Not only that, even between the monsoon month, people are able to grow different type of crop. Now, if you talk about the states such as Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, they grow rice throughout the year. Why they grow rice throughout the year? Because first of all, they have availability of water from monsoon, and apart from that, when the monsoon rainfall is not taking place, irrigation infrastructure are well developed that can support the cultivation of the this rice crop as such. Now let us try to also understand the rhythm of season and crops in India. So the cropping season of India is divided into three major types. These are Kharif, Rabi and Jad crop. Farmers have been following this rhythm for centuries. It's not a modern classification. Rhythm is one of the factors that ensure food supply for people. And Kharif, Rabi, Jad, basically all of these terms are of Arabic origin, and they were even used during the Mughal times. That means even before British came to India as such. So let us try to look at these seasons. What is the duration? So if you talk about Rabi season first, the sowing for Rabi crops is done in the month of October, November, December. January, February month is of growing, and mid-March to April is when you harvest the crop. It is basically related to the cool season with less water requirement. Crops such as wheat, barley, peas, mustard, gram are example of the Rabi crop. Then after Rabi crops comes the Kharif season. In Kharif season, crops are sown during the month of monsoon, southwest monsoon, such as July and August. Then September, October are the month of growth, and November, December again becomes basically October, November, you can say, becomes the month of harvesting. This is a crop, these are the crops that require hot condition and grow well in the heavy rainfall. Rice, maize, zwar, bajra, sugarcane, groundnut, cotton. These are some of the well-known kharif crop. And in between this comes a small short duration season that is also coinciding with the summer season in India, called as the season of Jat crop. Sowing is done in the early days of summer, harvesting is done in the late time of summer. So watermelon, cucumber, muskmelon, pumpkin, these are some of the notable crops from the Jat season. Now the question is that when you talk about Kharif, Rabi and Jad, as we have seen, these were the Arabic terms. Now before the Arabic terms were introduced in India, we know that cropping were cultivated, the cropping was carried out continuously, cultivation was carried out continuously. So they were referred by the name of Kedara, that means wet crops related to the monsoon rainfall, Haimana, that refers to winter crops such as wheat, and Grashamika, that refer to summer crop such as cucumber and watermelon. Each of these crops present its own unique challenges as well. For example, Kharif crop are dependent on timely arrival of monsoon, because as we have seen, if you want to sow well and expect the sowing to be successful in Kharif month, you have to believe, you have to, what can I say, you have to have this experience that monsoon have to arrive first. There has to be timely arrival. Excessive rainfall also leads to destruction of crops. That means rainfall should neither be very less nor very high. Both will cause drought versus flood-like condition, and that can cause significant distress to farmer and especially their families in particular, because majority of farmers in India are dependent not only for their livelihood, for their income earning, but even for their sustenance, for food supply on the success of the sowing. Now, if you look at the important fact that is mentioned here, Arthashastra contains sections on agriculture as well, where it says that a good rainy season is one when 1/3 of the annual rainfall occurs at the beginning. That means if India receives 100 centimeter of rainfall, as per Arthashastra, if about 30 centimeter of rainfall is received in the beginning of Shravan, that means rainfall or rainy season is good enough. At the end of season, Kartik, October, November, and 2/3 in the middle, that is Parush, that is the month of August, September, and Ashwayuh, that is September, October. Did it have anything to do with crop cycle? The answer is absolutely correct. The answer is absolutely yes. We know that Kharif season, Rabi season, Jad season, all of these to a large extent depends on the availability of water in different months of India. Now, one of the major parameter or ingredient that has to be available for cultivation to be successful, for agriculture to be successful, is the soil. And that's why we can say soil is referred as the foundation of cultivation. Soil can simply be defined as the thin upper layer of earth's crust that support plant life. Plant cannot grow, plant cannot survive if there is no soil. Soil does not form quickly. It takes millions and millions of years for the soil to develop from the rocks and the decay of organic matter. There is a term you should be aware about called as humus. Humus refers to the dark organic matter in soil that is formed by decomposition of plant as well as animal matter. It is rich in nutrients and also is able to retain moisture. What is the benefit of retaining moisture? Even during the condition of less rainfall, it can support crop growth. So humus basically comes from again Latin word that means earth, or it simply means soil. Now, here we have to take a look at this particular picture where it explains that how is soil formed. So several steps are there that we can take a look here. In the very first stage, the bed rocks, the rocks that are in their pristine forms, begin to disintegrate. So you can see at the bottom we have bedrock and there is a disintegration going on. Then organic matter facilitate further disintegration, and these create parent material. Why parent material? Because it is from the parent material you will see the growth of soil, and organic matter, that is a dead and decayed form of plant, animal, vegetation, start to accumulate in the upper layer. Then gradually as the time passed, different layers of soil form, such as humus, which refer to the top layer, organic layer. Then we have the top soil where you have minerals, nutrients. Then you have the parent material, which is made up of disintegrated rock. And then we have the bedrock, that is the unweathered, undisintegrated rock as such. And gradually as the time passes, all these layers then develop properly, and then they become capable to support variety of vegetation, whether it is crop, whether it is grasses, whether it is plant, or even longer trees. Now let us take a look at the soils of India. We have seen that India has a diverse climate, diverse type of crop. So it is natural India will also have diverse range of soil type. In the ancient times, you will find a text called as Amar Kosh. Amar Kosh has defined or classified soils of India on the basis of fertility into 12 types. Today, however, we classify soils of India into 6 major types, and the names are given here. So, alluvial, black soil, red soil, laterite soil, desert soil, and some soils are also called as mountain or alpine soil. Now, the question is that what is the linkage between the soil and crop? Now, in addition to the agroclimatic conditions that we briefly saw above, crops are strongly influenced by the type of soil where they grow. So let us try to understand this in more detail by looking at this map of India. In this particular map, you will find you have a description of different type of soil that is found in different regions of India. So if you take a look at the regions such as Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand, you will see that here you have the availability of alpine soil that also is referred as mountainous soil. It is formed by the freezing and melting of ice, which leads to weathering of rock. Soil in this region is thin, rough, and rocky in appearance. Similarly, if you talk about the western region of India, in the Rajasthan, you will find soil which is sandy in nature. Why sandy? Because majority of soil is made up of small grains of sand. There is a little bit of water, air, and organic matter mix, and that's when sandy soil comes into existence. Now, before we have discussed about a term called as weathering. Weathering simply can be explained as a process because you have a rock to begin with, you have bedrock to begin with. So in weathering, what happens? The rocks and the minerals which are present in this entire structure, they begin to break down into smaller particles. These are smaller particles. The breakdown into smaller particle happens due to several changes. It can be physical changes such as temperature change. It can be chemical changes such as the action of carbonic acid or other kind of chemicals, or even biological changes, that is the action of burrowing organisms. We can say you have the earthworms and all. And now if you take a look at, apart from this, in India, in the Deccan Peninsula, this region, you will find a soil that is called as black soil, and because black soil supports cotton, that's why it is also called as cotton soil. It is formed by the weathering of volcanic rocks. It holds a lot of moisture and generally is very fertile in nature. Laterite soil you will find in this region and also in the western Ghats, formed by the weathering of rocks by rain, becomes hard in hot weather. Most minerals are washed away in the laterite soil because rainfall is very heavy, and that's why only iron and aluminium remain in the laterite soil. It is because of the presence of the iron and aluminium, they react with air and water and then becomes red in color. These are not very fertile soil. Other soil is called as red soil. They are formed by weathering of lava. What kind of lava? Those lava that has cooled slowly of older rocks. There because they have a chemical called iron. When iron reacts with air and water, it becomes reddish in color. Again, red soil is not very fertile and is found in many parts of peninsular plateau such as Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, etc. And then the most fertile soil you have in India is called as alluvial soil. Alluvial soil is made up of silt deposit such as mud, sand, plus many small particles, fine particles you'll find here. They are basically brought by rivers. For example, river that is coming from Himalayas such as Ganga, Yamuna, Indus, Brahmaputra. All of these rivers keep on depositing these fine sediments, and thus these sediments are rich in nutrient, providing fertility to the soil as such. Then if you look at the major crops that is cultivated, you can see from the map here, maize, bajra, groundnut in the desert soil, rice, tea, nutmeg, cardamom is cultivated in the forest or the alpine soil, wheat, rice, jowar, dal, etc., sunflower cultivated in the black soil, rice, wheat, ragi, groundnut, sunflower, right, cinchona, coconut, areca nut, cashew nut, yam, tapioca, these are cultivated in the laterite soil, rice, wheat, ragi, dal, groundnut, mustard, cotton, tobacco, vegetables. These are cultivated, as we have seen, this is the region of red soil here. And then in the alluvial soil, it supports a variety of crops because, as we have discussed, you have the most fertile soil. So it supports almost everything that you can think of apart from supporting fruits and vegetables. Now, we know that a soil, if it continuously being used for many years, it can actually deteriorate in nature. So we have to also focus on nurturing of soil. Healthy soil is crucial for good harvest. Soil is a complex ecosystem with organisms like bacteria, fungi, earthworms, and insects. It has minerals, organic matter, water, air, and overall, to maintain its health and fertility, farmers use various soil conservation measures and such. Now, what are these soil conservation technique and measures that we use to prevent the degradation and preserve the productivity of soil? Some methods are referred as traditional method. Traditional method is something that were employed by our ancestors, and the most common of it is called as crop rotation. Crop rotation can be simply explained as method where different crops are grown in the same field in different season. So, for example, this season, imagine you are cultivating rice in the field. In the same piece of land, in next season, you can cultivate grass or pulse, and then again in third season you would cultivate rice. So you are not cultivating rice continuously every year, you are giving a break, and this is called as crop rotation. Similarly, this kind of method helps in preventing the soil from losing a specific nutrient. For example, if you are cultivating same type of soil, same type of crop, it will take on absorbing, or it will keep on absorbing same nutrients continuously. The soil will become kind of imbalance, soil will experience nutrient imbalance. Equally important is multiple cropping, where multiple crops were grown in the same field. This reduced the risk of pests and also ensured at least if 3-4 crops are growing, even if at least one crop fails, other crop might be successful. So you will not lose your entire agricultural income. Crops were chosen in such a way that there would be periodic harvest from the same field. Then you have contour plowing, which involves plowing along the natural curves of a hill slope to avoid soil erosion from rainwater. Right? For example, suppose this is a hill. Now, if hill slope is left like this, what will happen? Water will move at a fast rate and would erode the entire upper layer of soil, making it infertile in nature. So what you do, you make a cut across the hill slope and you carry out plowing and cultivation along the gradient of the hill slope. So it allows water to rest. It does not allow water to move at a fast rate. Thus, nutrient can be preserved here. Not only that, farmers also used organic fertilizer such as cow dung to replenish the soil nutrients. Now, you would have heard about a term called as panchgavya. So what is panchgav? Panchgav is a fermented mixture of 5 cow products. These are dung, urine, milk, curd, and ghee. Recent studies have shown that it acts as a biofertilizer, enhancing crop growth and productivity while increasing the resistance to diseases. So if you remember, if you try to think in the older time, today we have access to a lot of synthetic fertilizers, chemical fertilizer, urea, DAP, phosphate, sulfate, and everything. In older time, people did not have access to these fertilizers, so they were dependent upon the organic natural products, and panchgav is believed to have played an important role in ensuring that the crop is successful, crop growth is successful, cultivation is successful based on the availability of nutrients. So these are something that we can call as the contemporary traditional method of conserving the soil. Then we can also take a look at the contemporary approaches. Contemporary approaches can be equated with the modern technique such as terracing we are doing in the hill areas to create flat steps of farming. This also slows down water runoff, or forestation we are doing. That means planting of trees to simply prevent soil erosion. Some traditional method like mulching, blowing back crop residue are still practiced by farmers today. Very precise application of fertilizers enable their efficient use and also maintain soil health as such. Now, we know that water is a very critical resource whenever we are talking about agriculture, because without irrigation, without application of water, the cultivation of crops will become a challenging task. Thus, we can say that water is a fundamental resource for agriculture. Now, if we try to understand, there are two primary types of irrigation that is practiced in India. One is called as rain-fed irrigation and other is called as irrigated agriculture. Now, what is rain-fed agriculture? Rain-fed agriculture refers to a farming practice that rely entirely on rainfall. As I told you, during the summer month, rainfall is received in India across various parts through southwest monsoon wind, while during the winter, the northeast monsoon wind causes dry condition. However, in the states such as Tamil Nadu, coastal area of Tamil Nadu, as the rain is coming, the wind is coming from the Bay of Bengal, it is responsible for the rainfall. So this type of farming is common in that area that receives sufficient rain during the monsoon season. However, there is a challenge. The challenge is that monsoon rain is unpredictable in nature. You cannot say that every year monsoon will bring similar amount of rainfall. So if farmers are only dependent on monsoon rainfall, they would face challenges such as drought and unpredictable monsoon month. To cope with the challenges, various adaptation they have developed, such as choosing drought resistant crops. What is drought resistant crop? These are such crops which are able to grow even in low water conditions, or utilizing traditional water harvesting technique. What it means that during the rainy season, you conserve the water in tankas, in ponds, in lakes, etc. and during the dry season, you use this water that you have accumulated and collected before. This is what you can call as the rain-fed agriculture. Second we have is what you call as irrigated agriculture. Irrigated agriculture uses artificial method to supply water to crops. This type of irrigation is crucial for enhancing farm productivity and reducing reliance on monsoon rain. For example, you construct a dam and then you store the river water here. During the dry month, what would you do? You will open the gate of this dam, and the water that is accumulated in the dam then can be supplied through the canals, can be supplied through the channels to the agricultural field, where farmers can utilize it for the productivity. So that's how we can say that irrigation agriculture in modern time has played an important role here. Now, it's not that traditional in modern times only through dam construction we have been able to send water to the fields. In the ancient times also, traditional irrigation systems included systems such as FAR system. What is FAR system? It is largely practiced in Maharashtra. It is an example of community-based irrigation system. They uses small canals to divert river water to the fields as such. Similarly, in many states which are located in northeastern part of India, farmers practice bamboo drip irrigation. The example of this you can see in this particular photograph here. So farmers use, as you can see here, this is bamboo pipe 1, this is bamboo pipe 2. They use bamboo pipes to channel water from spring to their fields as such. Now, over time, irrigation has evolved from simple systems to more advanced ones. Modern irrigation technique involved drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation. So, what are drip and sprinkler? Let us try to understand this also in more detail. Drip irrigation referred also as a trickle irrigation. Why trickle? Because suppose you are cultivating plant here, and this is the plant that is growing in the soil. So rather than supplying water through the entire field, what would you do? You would allow water to drip directly to the roots of this plant. That's why it is called as drip by drip or trickle by trickle irrigation as such. So you use network of tubes and emitters, and you basically are what you are doing. Basically you are efficiently utilizing water for growing of crop as such. The example of photograph of drip irrigation you can see from here. You have the pipe network here, and at every roots the pipes are opened, and then they are basically providing water to the holes as such. So it also help in minimization of the water wastage. Second type of method is sprinkler irrigation, that sprays water directly in the air and it then falls over the crop like artificial rain as such. These modern methods help in using water more efficiently. This is an example of sprinkler irrigation. You can see you have the pumping system. The pump provides water to the sprinklers, and then sprinklers spray it all around in the form of natural rainfall. It imitates natural rainfall, and thus it also is an example of efficient use of water as such. Not only that, the evolution of irrigation has a significant impact on India's agricultural landscape, enabling farming even in areas with low rainfall. And because now irrigation water is available in those areas, we can ensure higher crop yield and can ensure a more stable food supply for the country. Because remember, the crop yield, the agricultural productivity is directly linked with the food security of a country. Then the next component we have is seeds. One key component of farming we can say is seeds. Seeds have been passed down in families from generation to generation, preserved at the community level and shared as well. Later on in India, we started to use high yield variety seeds. They were carefully selected and preserved for use during the next planting season. ICAR, for example, the major organization you have, research-based organization we have in the field of agriculture in India, called as Indian Council for Agricultural Research. They have developed method for the use of paste. The paste is called as Bees Amrit. So basically, what you do, you take cow dung and urine, you combine them with other material, and before you plant the seed, you coat the seed with these material itself. What is the benefit? The seeds are not seeds will not get spoiled. You will have a kind of protective layer, and also reduces the germination time. So these are the two advantages of using Bizamrit as said by Indian Council of Agricultural Research as such. Indian seed drills is an ingenious invention of ancient Indian farmers. These seed drills combine soil preparation, seed planting, and closing of the furrow in one operation. They reduce the labor involved in what would have been a three-step operation. It's very, very important system that is being used today in the farmlands of India. Now, we know that often the seeds that the plant later produces are not suitable for planting in the next season. This has drawn criticism because it creates dependency of farmers on the seed companies. So that is one challenge that we are facing in the modern agriculture. Now let us try to take a look at the agricultural practices by combining both traditional wisdom as well as modern innovation. Over the centuries, Indian farmers have developed numerous farming methods. Some of these are based on ancient knowledge and tradition, while others are based on modern technique. Many farmers, however, have begun to use a combination of both, that means traditional as well as modern farming. So, what are the examples of this system? Let us take a look at the traditional farming system. In traditional farming system or traditional agriculture, it considers the plant and soil as a complete system. Right? If you talk about here, in the traditional agriculture, the plant and soil are considered not a separate entity but a part of the same system itself. Soil is, what is the significance of soil for cropping? Every nutrient that crop and plant need, it obtains from the soil itself. Apart from that, farmyard manure you obtain from here. Bacteria, fungi that is naturally present in the soil help to convert the nutrients in the soil into that form that are easily taken up by the plant. For example, nitrogen, it is converted in the form of nitrates because it is nitrate which can be absorbed by the plants. The plant in turn support the growth of these organisms by supplying energy to them through the roots. So you would have heard in many plants such as legumes, that is the pulses, a special type of bacteria resides in their roots which benefits from the root nodules and also help in getting nitrogen back in the soil. Traditional farming typically involves a small scale resource reliant method that are closely tied to the environment. In simple, we can say traditional method of farming was more environment friendly. It was more sustainable in nature, even though productivity was not as high as modern farming method. Terrace farming can be considered as an example of such kind of farming. As we have seen in the hill slopes, you cut slopes along the hill, and on each of the slopes, you then cultivate the crops as such. So steps or terraces are built here. Indian Council of Agricultural Research has documented almost 5,000 traditional practices and tested over 100 of them. It has been found that over 85% of these practices were validated in modern science and could be applied to reduce the use of chemicals and enhance soil health. That means what we can say, even though we are today reliant on the modern agriculture system, we should not simply discard the traditional system as old, obsolete one. They play a very important role and together with modern system can create a core for the Indian agriculture. Now let us try to look at some interesting fact as given here. Traditional farming systems are usually aligned with natural cycle, which is we have discussed as Ritu Chakra, cycle of season, and often rely on family involvement in domestic animal. Example include Kulagar and Gokrishi. Kulagar is a Konkani word that comes from Kula, that means family, and Agar means storehouse. Similarly, Gokrishi is other term. This is a holistic method in which cows provide manure. Manure is used as organic fertilizer, and then bullocks are used to plow the field. So, Go plus Krishi. Go refer to the cow, and Krishi refers to agriculture. So, entire agriculture system to large extent depends on the cow. Contemporary agriculture is characterized by modern farming methods, and M.S. Swaminathan, a well-known scientist from India, is believed to be the architect of the Green Revolution. That's why government recognized his contribution and awarded him with the highest award, civilian award of India, called as Bharat Ratna. He was the mastermind behind Green Revolution. So in 1960s and 70s, India was facing a lot of crisis as the crop yield was very low. We had to depend on import of food grains for our survival, and that's why the movement introduced high yielding variety of seeds. Within a couple of years, the amount of wheat and rice that were producing increased by 3 to 4 times. Increased irrigation, because high yield variety of seeds required water, more and more water compared to the normal seeds. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides further to improve the yield and increase the productivity, and mechanized equipment such as tractors, threshers, combiners, harvesters, etc. So the combination of all these factors in the Indian farming is referred as green farming, which revolutionized the entire agriculture sector. And since then, we can say it is because of green revolution, agriculture has emerged as the backbone of Indian economy. To commemorate this event, Government of India also released a stamp to mark the significant increase in the wheat production. You can see between 1951 to 1968, there is a clear-cut massive increase, almost doubling and tripling of the amount of wheat that we were able to produce as such. However, there are certain concerns with the modern agriculture and the adverse effect we can say we are witnessing in last few decades. For example, impoverishment of soil, depletion of groundwater, contamination of the soil. Why? Because we are using more and more pesticides, chemicals, fertilizers, plus damage to the human animal health is being witnessed here as well. Multiplication of cancer cases in rural areas many times is tied up with increase in the use of fertilizer. Many scientific studies have established this fact already. More and more, agricultural scientists the world over question the sustainability of this type of agriculture. Again, to reiterate, I have made this point: the traditional method of farming yielded us less product, yielded us less goods, less crop, but they were more sustainable, more environment friendly in nature. So, what are the sustainable pathways? In recent years, there has been a growing interest in combining the productivity of modern method with the wisdom of traditional practices to create a sustainable agriculture. This is inspired by IKS, Indian Knowledge System. One example is in many states of India, such as Sikkim, we are seeing the resurgence of organic farming. Organic farming completely relies on natural products, natural manure, rather than depending on chemical fertilizer and pesticide. It relies on compost, seed cakes, and manure from animal waste material, animal sources, we can say. Apart from that, in many areas, we are also using neem-based pesticide. Neem, as you know, is a natural organic product. So they are relatively much less harmful to environment than when you're using the chemical product. Now, very interesting fact to note here: Sikkim. Sikkim is the world's first 100% organic state. What it means? Whatever agricultural produce you are cultivating in Sikkim, 100% of it is produced free of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So that is what we have to keep in mind whenever we are comparing the traditional method of farming and modern method of farming. Both have some positives as well as some negative. Now, a very interesting fact to note here: the FAO, which stands for Food and Agriculture Organization India, it has recognized three globally significant agricultural heritage systems in India. These are saffron farming in Kashmir, traditional agricultural system of Odisha that integrate forest management, and below sea level agricultural methods in Kerala that includes crop plantation and fishing as well. Now we know that when we talk about agriculture, because it is such an important part of the economy, the role of government cannot be understated. In many states, government has a support system to help farmer that can access seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides, information, what kind of weather we are expecting. Based on that, they can take decision about the cropping, research and training wherever it is required, so that farmers are able to efficiently utilize modern methods of cultivation or new farming practices. This is being done by India, government of India. Not only that, government provide electricity for irrigation at much more lower cost compared to the average consumer. Reduction of input cost is the guiding factor behind it. Farmers can access financial assistance through schemes for crop insurance, such as Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana provides you insurance money in the case there is a crop failure, so that the farmer will not have to completely forego their income if there is a drought and flood like situation. Not only that, to ensure that crops and various food grains and other agriculture produce are stored for long period of time without perishing, government has promoted variety of cold storages and better access to information and market through use of digital technology. Today, agriculture sector cannot be left out when we are in the era of digital transformation, digital technology. So these are some of the challenges, these are some of the provisions government has made in the recent years. Now, there are certain challenges which is inherent to the agriculture of India. What are these challenges? One of the first challenge we can highlight here is the decreasing size of land holding. Now, what happens in India? Suppose that 50 years, suppose that five generations back, you have a person, he had 5 acres of land. In next generation, he has suppose 5 children. So these 5 acres of land will get divided into 1 acre of land. Later, these people have their own children. So this 1 acre of land would get divided into 0.5 acre. So over generation and generation, the size of land holding keep getting smaller and smaller. The average land holding is approximately 3/4 of a hectare today, which is very less compared to other countries of the world where agriculture is the major occupation. So to understand that, an average farmer of India has a land which is not larger than the average size of a football field. And because the land holding itself is very less, the income of farmer is very low here, and it's difficult for farmers to use modern means of farming such as tractors and machines, because the input cost would be tremendously higher and the farmers would not be able to get the desired profit as such. Machines are designed largely for larger farms, expensive to buy or rent. Although of late machines have been designed and invented for small farms too, but its uptake is very, very less. Traditionally, if you try to look, families in farming have different sources of income beyond the crops they grow. So animal rearing, such as cows, goats, poultry, practicing of apiculture, that is the bee farming for getting honey, fishing, pisciculture we have seen. Wherever it was possible, they also used to collect forest produce. Many used to grow trees or the bunches of fruits and timbers as such. So this was an example of diversity that Indian farmers used to practice in the past, and diversity was not of no use. It was very important part in building, it played a very important part in building resilience. However, today this is proving to be inadequate to provide a decent quality of life to farmers as such. Farmers also face one of the biggest challenges of our time, and that is climate change. Because of the global warming, because of climate change, the weather has become more and more unpredictable in nature in the last couple of decades, and the monsoon also of India has become more erratic in pattern as such. That is the reason why we are witnessing untimely rains in many part of India. We are witnessing severe drought or heavy rainfall in India as such. So because of all these factors, farmer today face a much more higher risk of crop destruction compared to few decades back. And it is because of this reason, many farmers across India faces heavy loss. This trend is likely to get worse as our planet is getting rapidly warmer here. Now, with its rich alluvial soil, something thought exercise is given here. With its rich alluvial soil, for millennia, the Ganga basin has been a source of food and water to millions of people. Over 500 million people today depend on this area. Yet, for some years, the Ganga river has been under stress and is increasingly unable to replenish itself. Part of it are no longer navigable in summer. The water level is too low even for the river boats. The causes are multiple. Global warming is causing Himalayan glacier to melt. So we know that river Ganga basically is driving its water due to the glacial melting. So as glacier is melting rapidly, more and more water volume is pushed into the river. But at the same time, because the melting is taking place at an unprecedented rate, much water is diverted to irrigation. Agriculture industry pump out huge amount of groundwater. Hundreds of dams interfere with the river's natural flow. And these all are problems we are facing in the Ganga basin. Solution do exist, but if the condition of Ganga persists the same way how it is persisting today, agriculture in its basin may become less and less sustainable, because the probability and frequency of floods, drought would increase significantly in the coming future, that may threaten the livelihood of millions and millions of people of India, farmers of India, and that would have a significant impact on India's food production that can also cause food crisis. Such challenges and few more have often led farmers to take loans in times of hardship, because imagine a farmer want to increase their crop production, but they have to buy high yield variety seeds which are costly in nature. They have to depend on tractors, harvester for planting, for basically harvesting and the sowing of the seeds and all that. So this all require huge amount of money. They cannot do so without taking the loans and such. Only to find that paying those loan back was difficult and catching them in a debt trap. So suppose farmer has taken a lot of loan, and if the crop fails next year, what would happen? He would lose his income. He would not be able to repay the loan. Loan anyway is incurring interest, and interests many times are very, very high in nature. So that's why, as a result, many farmers of India, as many as 2,300 farmers every day, as per the recent report, have been compelled to abandon agriculture in India. With new approaches such as those described in this chapter, there is hope that agriculture will eventually flourish in every part of India. What are those approaches? These approaches are dependent upon traditional method of farming. We are bringing back, or we are at least trying to integrate traditional method of farming with modern method of farming. We are going to promote organic farming and less dependency on what we can call as the chemical fertilizers and synthetic acids. Now, to summarize this chapter, Indian agriculture blends traditional and modern methods such as crops, livestock, forestry, and more. Agriculture in India is connected with its diverse climate and monsoon. Three cropping seasons we have discussed. What are these? Kharif, Rabi, and Jaid. Kharif sown during summer, Rabi sown during winter, Jaid during the summer season. Six major soil types we have in India: alluvial, black, red, laterite. Right. Apart from that, mountainous, alpine, as well as desert soil. And the health of soil is key to flourishing and sustainable farming. Seeds are passed down traditionally or bought as high yield varieties from companies. This time create dependence of farmers on companies for seeds. Sustainable farming combines modern technology with eco-friendly practices such as efficient irrigation, drip farming, sprinkler farming we have discussed. Farmer face challenge like a small land holding, right? We have discussed the average size of land holding is not larger than a football field in India. Non-affordability of modern equipment, they are very costly. Farmer have very less income, as well as the challenge related to the market. Many times farmers go produce, but the cost which they incur in production is much more higher than what is the price they are getting while selling it in the market. So there is a glut of supply. The government helps through access to information and research training, as well as different type of financial support. Example we have taken is of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So these are the basic facts related to the farming, agriculture, how it is related to the soil, how it is related to the irrigation, monsoon, and how and what kind of challenges Indian farmers are facing, what might be the possible solution. These were all we discussed in this chapter. That's all. Thank you very much.